2. Didn't really have plans on talking about this except for last night. I kept getting tons of messages from y'all, so I thought, well, perhaps we do need to talk about this. So I'll give it a minute, see if anybody wants to join me. It's Monday. What a way to start the week. Not necessarily something I wanted to talk about. I got this new hat. Hi, music. I got this new hat that lets your bun pop through. I'm having the hardest time making this hat curl, breaking this hat in. It's being so stubborn. I like a really curled bill, and it's beginning to get on my nerves. Hi, Cindy. Okay, so I wasn't necessarily wanting to do this, but I kept getting messages all night about people going, hey, worried about Ryan. Hey, can you talk about what's going on with Ryan? Hey, why is he flipping from one extreme to the other? Hey, guys, we've discussed this before. First and foremost, let me say that we need every perspective, viewpoint, rationale. We need everyone's thought pattern vocalized in this world. Hey, call me Chris. We need everyone's voice pattern vocalized, everyone's thought pattern vocalized. Hi, Jennifer. And we need to be used to that occurring. We need to get back to the acceptance that we once had in this nation, where everyone had a perspective, and it was okay to have that perspective. Even if you thought it was batshit crazy, it was okay for them to have their perspective. I think I saw Gypsy fly through too. Hi, gals. We need to get back to that. We need to get back to that, because we're becoming way too sensitive, and sensitivity creates an over amplification of emotions, and then people start gravitating toward their emotions rather than rationale. So I'm not saying what he's speaking about is right or wrong. I'm saying he should have the absolute ability to speak whatever he believes and state it as his truth without people thinking something is wrong with him. He has done enough of a deep dive to where he thinks he has built this case around this theory that he has. It's his theory. It may not be yours. It may not be 99.9% of everyone else's theory, but it's a theory just like yours, just like everyone else has got a theory. It's theirs. They're allowed to have it. The big issue for me is, why do people become so extremely like clutch my pearls hurt when someone has a thought that goes against mine? That is the real issue in this nation, because if you have done any research over the U.S. government, have you done any research since America has been founded, you can cite over at least 30 times that they have done horrible things to the people, the citizens of their nation. So if we wanted to go into those Edgewood experiments I talk about all the time, the syphilis injections they gave to colored people of the South that were in the army. I mean, we can go through a lot, starting in the early 1900s in California, where they did horrible things to immigrants that normally came from China and Japan. There have been a lot of bad things happen in this nation. So obviously there is a basis for people to kind of be hesitant about policy procedure in this nation. Tuscaloosa, yeah, there you go. So people have a valid reason to go, I don't know if I trust all of these ABC, units that run this nation. They have some valid perspectives. They have some valid points. But what really has become weaponized, rather than in the ABC units that police our nation, are the emotions of the citizens in this nation. So you're not allowed to have a perspective or a thought pattern unless it coincides with what is socially acceptable. But what is socially acceptable is ran by whoever's in power at the moment. Whoever's in power at the moment is normally placed there by the ABC alphabet agencies. So it's this vicious cycle that we get into. Instead of just people being themselves, they look to be in the middle of a group of people that they feel have the best thought or the best safety options. And so for Ryan to, say, I don't believe this, Yeah, groupthink sucks. For Ryan to say, I don't believe this and I'm going to take another route out, makes them think that he is disavowing his people, his fans. And no, he just has a different thought pattern on this one instance. And while I understand his thought pattern, I have a separate thought pattern. And it doesn't actually go that far away from his. I can understand how he got there, but I have a separate thought pattern. Doesn't mean either one of us are wrong or right. No, it just means we think differently. But that is also what makes a good society, is different thinkers. We need people whose brains click on different channels and different wavelengths. We need everybody being able to say, hey, this is what I picked up from this. This is what I saw. This is what I believe. This is what I don't believe. We need to be able to say that without saying, you're trying to hurt someone. Having a perspective or an opinion is not trying to hurt someone. Though I do believe a lot of people feel hurt around this case, because when you put a juvenile, a minor, in a victim mentality, and you show the rest of the world and you circulate this story, obviously you're going to have people become emotionally attached, and they're emotionally attaching to a minor, which makes the emotions amplify and the protective instinct amplify. So that's why everybody is being so caught up in this and so aggressively, don't you dare, don't you dare say that. But the thing is we have to say everything. We have to throw every thought process out there, every thought pattern, every possible scheme of events. We have to just literally throw everything out there, because without throwing everything on the table, we can't sift and find the valid things. And yes, some of us may automatically sift through stuff and say, I don't believe that, I don't believe that, I don't believe it, and find our own way. Ron is one of those that is very open-minded. And so if he's very open-minded, and if he's very open-minded and he's followed this whole thing and he's brought out some really great clues and some really great question marks and some really questionable people, places, and events, and then he gets to where he should be making a culmination of logical reasoning and it disappears on him, then he goes, it must not be real. I understand how he got there. And now he mourns all the work he did, all the time he spent on that, all the people that he's had to have contact with that have been unnecessary and aggravated contact. He mourns that. What do people do when they mourn? They normally get defensive. So now he's defensive about the time he spent on this. He's mad, he's angry, and poof, it doesn't exist, and I'm pissed. Understandable. That's all he's going through. Is a defense mechanism for everything he just worked at that literally blew up in his face. Poof, I can't make sense of this. I can't make it seem real. That's where he is. That's where he is. It may not be where you are. Hi, Denise. It may not be where I am, but that's where he is. And that is just as valid as where anyone else is. And he's not trying to be disrespectful, I believe. I think he's trying to make sense of it, and he can't make sense of it. And therefore, that's where he got to, and now he's frustrated. Frustrated is the first step to anger. So if you're frustrated, you're already angry, so he's defensive. I don't get defensive. Like, I've seen so many twists and turns in cases, I don't really get defensive anymore. I just sit back and go, okay. That's why I look at body language and I look at logic. I don't try to go PI, because there's a lot of stuff that when you go PI, it doesn't make sense. Like when he was following the Google Earth to the lots that look like chop shop lots. Well, sometimes when impound lots overrun, they rent those little lots, which could be why those little lots that look like crap and don't look like normal impound lots are there, don't look as uniform, don't look as clean, and have cop cars there. They sometimes rent lots from dealerships, businesses, mechanics, if they have to impound excess vehicles and they don't have a perfect impound lot. They may quarter off and rent part of a locked lot from someone else. So there's a lot of reasoning there that those things could be happening. There's probably a very reasonable answer to all of that. As far as finding the different sheriff offices that don't look as sheriff offices should, it may be an outpost. It may be we have little, because we're so rural, we have little communities. And so there are little places that they position officers, like we have no one at the south end of the county. We have no sheriff department at the south end of the county, but they will often issue officers to stay in the south end of the county around the banks. And so if anyone has an issue, it's known, you go to the south end of the county at the banks and you report it's law enforcement there. So they kind of call that the South Precinct, even though there's no precinct building there. And that's where the officers stay during the day, just so that they can get to the south end of the county as quickly as the officers in the north, where the office is, can get to the northern issues in the county. So it doesn't necessarily blow my mind that there's not a huge structure that says Justice Center or Sheriff's Department or anything. That doesn't blow my mind. I've seen small areas, rural areas, and this is a tourist area, and you've got to think they have to have a lot of outposts because they normally have probably a lot of tourist traffic, a lot of tourist issues, and maybe some traffic, some extra roadblocks. And so they've got these little places set up to where maybe officers do congregate on certain days of the year to handle overflow and stuff like that. So it doesn't blow my mind at all that those things are there or not there if you're looking at Google Earth. That doesn't wig me out at all. Him saying that the little girl does not exist. Now, I've gone back through the grandfather's ski resort that the grandfather built that they were living in at the time, the Lost Trail in Truckee, and gone back through all the pictures and all the posts. And there's teenagers don't always get into family photos, but she's in a few for holiday meals and one video where they're cutting the mom's hair, and she sasses at one of her siblings to hush up. So, there is video of this young lady living her life. So, whoever this young lady was, she apparently, obviously, was a valid human being. Now, we know that law enforcement identified the body that was pulled out as her. And now we're waiting on toxicology and all this other stuff to come in. So I'm not going to say she doesn't exist. I've gone through enough to say that I've seen videos of her for the last few years on the Lost Trail that tells me she was a viable, active participant in this family. That's what I can tell from that. Have I seen any grade school, kindergarten photos? No. But do many parents put those on the internet? No. So that's just normal. Yes, call me Chris. That's the tourism issue because of the ski slopes and stuff. Yes, so they have outposts and stuff where people have to stay. So a lot of parents don't put pictures of their younger kids notoriously on social media, especially earlier in their life when they weren't on social media running a business, and now they need to post on. So that could be a reason why we don't see a lot of her younger life on the internet. It doesn't boggle my mind because I have one child that does like social media and one child that does not. So if somebody tried to do a deep dive on my kids, it would probably end up the same way. I didn't post a lot of my children on the internet unless it was very locked and very private for a long time because of the job I have. So a lot of people where I lived, I never worked where I lived until the last year. So I always worked away. So a lot of people never knew where I worked, that I had remarried, that I had 2 kids, and they just didn't know anything about me. And if I live next to people that don't know anything about me, how can you expect somebody halfway across the nation to know anything about me? So losing people in perspective is easy when you get into these cases. Now, what I will say is there absolutely could be something else going on here that we don't know. There absolutely could be something else, some fishing expedition, some financial fundraising crap. It could absolutely be. And that's why I say every viewpoint is valid. Every perspective is valid because we have to think about those things. And to get a whole picture to where we have to acknowledge everything so that we can then start shaking out the things that don't really match so we can get to the heart of the issue. So we have to think, everything. Ryan stating his beliefs, even though he states them in an aggressive manner, he's aggressive because he's being defensive, because he's upset, because he's done all this hard work and poof, it just evaporated in front of his face. He's not mad at people. I think he's more mad at the work he's done and the time that he allowed it to take over his life and his emotions. Now, I would like to tell Ryan that the work he did was very good. and that answered a lot of questions, brought up a lot of red flags, gave us a lot of concerns, and it educated a lot of parents about just what's out there on social media and in the real world. And it gave also a lot of parents a lot of tips and tricks on how to kind of look at things in a different manner. I think he did good things, that you can always find a positive in everything. Hi, Miss Patty. How are you doing? I'm trying to have a chill session with everybody. So I think that Ryan's way of investigating helped a lot of parents learn to look at things and get some tips and tricks about how to tweak social media and how to use Google Earth and how to retrace someone's steps to get information upon what they may be trying to get, out of their child or someone else being on social media. So I think he did a lot of wonderful things there, and just because at the end of things he's upset and frustrated with, it didn't pan out to how he had hoped it would, or it didn't pan out that he had the knowledge he thought he had, it doesn't mean he's being disrespectful to anyone. It doesn't mean if he doesn't believe that this young lady existed, what does it change? Nothing. It doesn't change if that little girl has a family and they raised her and they know she's real and they loved her and the other people that loved her had a life with her. What does his belief that perhaps she didn't exist change? Nothing. We have to stop with this over emotional, your words hurt people, because we got to get away from that, people, because we all have words and we all have lives, and we're going to have to learn how to let them coexist again, because we're getting really sucky at that as a society. So I think a lot of this is just frustration, and it's fully to be expected. And I just think it's amazing. One thing I like to point out is how he can manipulate his ADHD to work for him. That is something I have tried to help kids with ADHD learn for a decade. And a lot of them see it as an enemy, as something that controls them. But he turns around and controls it and uses it at times to help amplify what he needs to focus on. And I'm like, that's it. He needs to honestly start taking on kids with ADHD and help shape their investigative work, their modes of thinking, their critical thinking skills, and kind of get them to absorb how he looks at problems, as a puzzle, rather than, this big obstruction in their world that is going to be more awful because my brain doesn't click like everybody else's. That can be a superpower if you know how to, kind of make it adaptive to what you need it to work with. Yeah, everybody's going after him in the comments. It's crazy. And, when you're a celebrity, the amplification is horrible because when you do something great, you get smoke blowed up your butt. When you do something bad, you get chopped down. And you never just have a day of being a normal human being. And so you can imagine how frustrating this is for him, because he doesn't ever get to have a day where he just gets to get up and hide in society and he doesn't really want to be bothered. He doesn't get that because someone is always upset about something he said, or always hyped up about something he said, or always wanting something. He doesn't get those normal days. So fame is a catch-22. It's a double-edged sword, and I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. I have a really good friend, Peter Freestone. He was with Freddie Mercury the last 12 years of his life, and he has extensively told me what fame is like. And I've seen the wear and tear on his beautiful heart and beautiful soul as he has kept up this travel and done these things to keep Freddie's memory alive. And people say horrible things about him, and he's literally the kindest man I've ever met. He's the sweetest soul I've ever met. And so I know how fame hurts. I've seen it on very dear friends of mine. And I would hate for anyone to feel that. Now, just imagine one person in the world said that they don't believe this person existed. The parents may or may not hear it, but since it's one celebrity, now millions of people are going to amplify that, and the parents are going to hear it. Where if we had just let one person have one perspective and we hadn't accentuated it because he's famous, it would just been one more voice. We've got to get out of this mode of always amplifying what we see as other people's faults. How about we amplify the positives? So I choose to look at all the good things that he accomplished while he was doing this. And like I said, case is not over. Stranger things have occurred. If you look back in U.S. history, you have every reason to not trust these agencies. And we'll just have to wait and see. The toxicology reports have to come in. The autopsy has to be finalized. We've got to know what's going on. Insensitive and disrespectful to the poor girl's family because why? Like, I mean, I had an uncle that didn't live like the best life, that passed away, and people said nasty things, but it didn't change him and what he meant to me one bit, so it didn't matter. So I don't know how someone's words can change someone's life, someone's experiences with that human being, and what they meant to them. So I think we're allowing our emotions to get carried away. It's all about understanding perspective. And if Ryan Upchurch meant something to this family and was like a guideship for this family, and they like, well, oh, he's so perfect, they might be upset that he said that. But probably they're going to go, I don't know who the boy is, and whatever he's across the nation, it's probably not going to be a big deal. But society can blow it up and make it a big deal. So, it's just like, we can turn this over and be mad at each other all the time about anything because we're all constantly going to be different. We're going to have different thoughts, or we can learn to respect those different thoughts and realize that that's yours and you get to have it, and this one's mine and I get to have it. And it doesn't matter what it is. You worked on it, it's yours, that's yours. But the people that live this experience are the end all be all. They're the people that dictate what it means to them. So her family, her friends, her loved ones will dictate what this whole experience means to them, not someone else's experience halfway across the nation. Miss Patty says it's got to be hard being in the public eye, and people on the internet, and people in the internet world can be so evil and heartless. Although Ryan seems to be a very strong young man, I'm sure it hurts and gets to him. It has to get to him. It has to get to him because after a while, you cannot keep up that emotional protection hedge. Because to really have your own space, you have to be able to go detach and internalize. And as he gets more and more famous, that gets more and more difficult. So it's really strange to think that somebody can't unplug like we can and walk away from it. And that creates sometimes too much comfort with letting out a lot of our thoughts and emotions. But he shares his thoughts and emotions in his music, so he's probably comfortable anyway. I think, as music says, maybe he's trying to show people how easy it is for people to manipulate a horrible situation. I think that's one of the best things to take away from this is every YouTuber that he talked to, every different storyline they have, the ones that were truly manipulating it for money, the ones that were truly cashing in on this. He is correct to question why friends have set up a GoFundMe rather than family, and why there are multiple. And, I have had my own questions as to why the family has been so quiet. There are a lot of things that make me concerned, but at the end of the day, I have to go, I just have to take what I can glean from this and understand that everyone handles their own scenarios their own way. And so I can't apply my own mode of thinking to their behavior because their behavior is much different than mine. Their mode of thinking and turning that into behavior is much different than mine. And so I can't really say that, they must be thinking like this. I can't assume that. I think everybody was frustrated with this case, and it caused a lot of super high-powered emotions, and a lot of people got emotionally attached. And I tell you what, if you get emotionally attached to these cases, walk away, because that's when you start to do damage to yourself and to other people. Because if you can't throw out every scenario, every option, even the bad ones, even the ones that don't make you feel good to think about, you have to be able to throw those out there to look at these cases and have a full option table of what may have been on it. All has to be on the table. It has to all be in the pile. And that's why I said a lot of people don't like to put the victim in a human component. They like to hold them up here of this little precious, angel victim. We can't do that. We have to look at them in a human component and understand that they too may have, behaviors that cause this. And a lot of people will get mad, they would get mad when you say stuff like that, but you have to do that. And so people just get super high strung and emotional. But at the end of the day, words. a grieving family that doesn't know this somebody that's a country music rap star that doesn't read social media, that is privately running a ski resort in the mountains in California, probably not going to put a lot of weight on what someone says in Nashville, Tennessee that sings music. So I don't think it's going to devastate their world. It might devastate you momentarily emotionally because you've invested a lot of yourself in this and you want to see this family be well, and you think somehow that's going to impede their healing. I guarantee you that they're not searching through and only looking for the negative. I guarantee you right now they are closed up as a family and healing. Would I necessarily say anything negative? No. But I, again, am not as outspoken as Ryan, and he has every right to voice his opinion and his concerns. And some of his concerns, as I just spoke about, are valid. So I am too interested in the GoFundMe scenario. I'm interested in the ICMEL and the xenomate issues, the strange friendships that go run off into odd places, and all those things are interesting to me, because one thing I do know, being in law enforcement for a decade, is that there are underbelly societies within our society that do criminal things 100% of the time, and most people live their entire life and never know about them. So I understand things that live below the society that most people live out. And once you become aware of them, you can't become unaware. You just have to deal with knowing about them. So I understand that there are horrible things that exist and strange things do occur, and not everything we see is what it is. But at the end of the day, everyone has to make their own determination. Everyone is free to have their own opinion and their own statement. And we cannot become emotionally affixed to these huge media stories, because, as I've told you all many times, when someone wants you hyper emotional, it's so they can control you. They want to pull you around by the nose. So it's easier to do if you're hyper emotional. They're taking emotional hostages. So if someone wants you hyper emotional, or they're trying to get you in an emotional state, back up and go, why do you want me emotional? Because I'm much better to you logical and rational. Why do you want me emotional? What is the benefit? What is the gain? I always take a step back and I try to look at everything. And of course, being in law enforcement, I detach and compartmentalize way too effectively. But I kind of detach, step back, and I start looking at the psychology and the body language. And I'm not looking at them as how they're addressing me. I'm just looking at them as how they're behaving and the vibes they're sending off to everyone, and how it is viewed, and the picture, the overall picture, not how it affects me. A lot of people can't do that. They only see how it affects them. It's best to take a step back and go, I'm not going to get emotional. I just need to look at facts. And I also need to, if I'm going to entertain theories, entertain all theories. I can't pick or choose. I've got to put them all on the table. And you also have to realize that if this young lady was a real human being, she has a real life with lived experiences, and not all of them are going to be positive. We're all human beings. We're all flawed. And we have to remember all these things when we're investigating these things, instead of glorify the victim and attack anyone who will not jump on that bandwagon, because that is not how investigations go. You have to look at the nitty gritty, the dark, dirty, ugly side of things as well. So Ron has looked at a lot more of this than most people have, and he may have seen stuff that really may have concerned him that he's not spoken about. He may have dipped into some things that possibly only law enforcement know about, or a lot of people that have been in law enforcement may understand is out there, and it may have rattled him a little bit. So, there's a few things that could have been upsetting to him. Hi, Barbie. I'm glad you're here. Hi, Fang. Hi, AG. AG, he's not a A-list celebrity, but he is a celebrity in our area. But that doesn't mean that someone in Truckee, California is going to know him. So everybody here thinking that he's hurting her parents, they probably don't even know who he is. But if we keep amplifying it, they will know who he is, and they, and so what's the point of amplifying, what he said? Just let it be his opinion, let him state it, it's his perspective, and go on. There's no reason to share and bash and amplify and send out. That's just almost like creating negative energy going out. But I dare say that there are a lot of people that have similar perspectives on this story that just don't want to say anything. And it's their right to have those perspectives and and opinions. So we just have to realize that when you get emotionally attached, you're not always making the best decisions. And perhaps Ryan got overly emotionally attached and got hurt when it didn't work out the way he wanted it to. No, there's no reason to be hateful. Like, for me, I would not have stated the way he stated it. But the thing is everyone's allowed to express themselves in their own way. So I think he was more frustrated at the story. He's followed this whole story and this whole investigation, and then poof, it kind of fizzled in his hands. I think he was more angry at that than anything else. But he has every right to state it however he wants to state it. Barbara says, what are your feelings on xenomate? I feel she's involved. All I've seen her. I think xenomate is a strange character for sure. I don't know anything about her other than the pictures that were found with other people that kind of trail off into odd ways. Her popping up on the scene, having a YouTube channel for like 10 years and then popping up on the scene and like overnight having like some kind of super following and being on panels, I was like, where'd she come from? It's like, what happened? What is she known for? I'm sitting here with my master's in psychology and law enforcement and counseling, and where did she come from and why are we listening to her? But some people have that draw, and sometimes people listen to the wrong people, and they listen to them because they're intriguing or they're concerning. A lot of people may have fed into that, and maybe she was trying to be a little mysterious figure to get a lot of views and clicks and a following. Or maybe she actually is into something we don't want to know about. But she definitely is someone who is trying to make sure that her social media self and real self are not easily put together. And that is kind of like a red flag in my mind as well. So I'm not she's not going to cost me any night's sleep, but I am concerned with like why she popped up on this, why she was at the lake, after the accident, before the body was found, and why she chose this time to jump in, and why she chose to be so aggressive toward people that were, going in and trying to investigate this as a citizen. So, there are a lot of questions there as well, but at the same time, she's allowed to build her own idea about what happened. Some of the ways she chose to express herself concerned me, but I have to say that's on her, and I have to see more from her to have a baseline to understand how she functions. I don't know enough about her to understand a baseline. AG, I think that Ron is the world that he lives in, the role he plays, and how he became famous. I think he's very used to people having a critical eye upon him. So I think he learned at a very young age that it's better for him personally just to say what he believes and say it loudly. And he's just a person that feels comfortable doing that. And that's just how he is. I have a few people in my family that are that very same way. And it annoys me sometimes, but it's their way that they express themselves, and that's how they do it. But as far as like being disrespectful, now if he had like sent the family like a letter, a note, and been like, you people suck, you're conning the whole world, now I would be like, whoa, that's no. But now he just has an opinion about the case, and he's like, I don't know enough about this girl to even know that she's real. And that could probably be said for 98% of the population. We don't know enough about the girl to know she's real. Now, I don't side with him on that because I've gone back on the ski resort and seen pictures of her with his family during family time. Obviously, she was part of this family. So I'm fine with that. And if you rewind and listen to the things that he pointed out on his Google Earth stuff, I explained my thoughts about that. So, I'm not with him on a lot of this, but I'm absolutely supporting him on how to investigate, how to throw everything on the table, how to have an open mind, and how to state your own opinion, even if it's not, even if it's not the popular one. We all should be able to state our opinions. And people really need to get back to the place where they spoke honestly to each other, and people anticipated honest speech from others, because we're not there anymore. I mean, my God, I can't even go out in the world and tell somebody I'm a goddamn woman. It's just this place, this whole society, this freaking planet has gone crazy, if you ask me. I have somebody that will contest that I am a woman if I state that I'm a woman. You can't win those arguments with those people. You just should not even try. And we're all being drawn into this. We're all being drawn into the words, how they apply to us as per what they actually mean. And we're starting to delude and disintegrate our vocabulary and how we communicate. And therefore, if you can't communicate, you can't debate. And if you can't debate, you can't, toss ideas around and come up with a great plan. If you can't toss ideas around and come up with a great plan, you can do nothing to help out your fellow man. So we're degrading ourselves voluntarily by allowing our communication and our vernacular to be emptied. It's just emptied. It means nothing anymore. I think he was onto something with them as well. But I don't know how else he could have brought awareness to it. He just said, I see this. This is what I see. If someone had seen something else, they should have made that spin and expressed that. We can't look at Ron and say he should have seen 100% of everything and he should have told us all about it. He dropped the ball by not doing this. Well, he may not have had the mental capacity to do that. That's where your mental capacity comes in, where you have to think and you have to do that. But we don't work together anymore. All we do is call out each other's shortcomings. We don't say, hey, I have my own. So while, I've got two great friends and I say we're awesome friends because we fill in each other's blind spots. That's what society is supposed to do. So if you saw Ryan struggling in one component, you should have said, got his video and said, hey, I understand this, this, and this. Here's where I come into this and maybe help explain this further. That's something maybe you need to do. We can't expect other people to do it for us. You have to be able to step up and if you have a better idea, voice it, put it out there. But again, we've gotten so heavy on policing everybody's thoughts and opinions that we are not allowed to communicate. We're not allowed to have a dialogue unless it's the dialogue that you want. And that's impossible. That's why we have to have an acceptance when people speak. And that is what is being degraded in our nation right now. Ryan's brain Ryan's brain has gone through myelination. It's where it's going to be, but he has learned to use the ADHD in a different way than most people that have ADHD. So he uses that extra kick of channel clicking and energy to do deep dives and to get information and to basically scan like probably 30 times the information normal brains can scan in the same amount of time. So he's learned how to harness that as a positive rather than a negative. And for that, I give him super props because that in itself is whew. But you also have to understand that the true crime community on the internet is jacked up. It's full of people that are not kind, not consistent, not patient. I mean, it's really not a good community. AG, you're going to have to give me more. If you say that's not what he said and we all know it, you're going to have to give me more because I'm giving you my interpretation and I didn't wake up and they said, this is AG's notes and AG, by God, you better say this or AG's going to get fucking pissed. I don't wake up and read books like that. This is just my interpretation of what's going on. And so I try to say it in words and thoughts that everyone can compost. And if they're not meeting you or meeting your standards, you're more than welcome to leave. So, and I have no problem with that. But this is how, people come in and they try to dictate the conversation, dictate my mode of thinking, dictate my interpretation. Can you imagine what it's like for Ryan to have 3 million people that do that to him? It can be absolutely overwhelming. So you have to understand that not everyone is going to think your way, speak your way, process things your way, and that's okay. Because everyone's processing skills together create a much bigger sounding board to find actual truth and validity. If we're just able to say, hey, you know something, I don't agree with 80% of what you said, but I'll take that 20. Well, that's great. You just garnered 20% more knowledge than you had 15 minutes ago. You had to sift out 80% of it, but you gained something there. Some people may not bring you any validity, and you may say, hey, I don't need to listen to them, and that's fine. I have people that I do that to as well. But you're always going to be able to learn something about yourself from other people and how you respond to them. And so right now, this is a big test for a lot of fans. It is, why do you follow this young man? Do you support his music and his mode of thought and his lyrical interpretation? That's great. He's a musician. That's what pays his bills, and that is what is very important to him. That's awesome. Love his music. Now, to love his music, do you have to love the person that he is, the way he interprets social stuff, the way he looks at true crime, the way he looks at the things that happen in the world around him? Do you have to also be okay with that to enjoy his music? No. But a lot of people think that they have to love 100% of this person to take anything from them. So it's either all or nothing. And if you do that to people, you're really limiting your outreach and the benefit you're going to get from these people that have different ways of thinking. So you should always look at people and say, you know something, I can cut out the bluff, but I'll take where you're making sense, and you're going to grow as a human being if you're able to do that. So would I have said what he said about the little girl? No, I would not have said it. That's just not, those are just not words that I would say. But he is someone that puts his words out there every day in music and songs and poetry. And so he has a much more open communicatory avenue in his brain, and he doesn't care to put it on the internet. I'm a little bit more careful. I was trained in law enforcement. I'm going to hold back on some things. I'm going to look at the overview, shrink it down until I find my core possibility, and then go from there. And while other people may say weird, random things, it's probably not going to affect it unless I see validity. And then I'm going to go, oh, I'll take that. I didn't want that. Oh, that. Okay. Okay, now let's look at this again. But what we have is everybody going, tell me what you think, tell me what you think, I hate you, you're so stupid, I'm smart. But we have no conversation about what is actually helping the story, hindering the story, helping the investigation, what could practically or, realistically be real. We just have a lot of emotional fluff going on. And so it's really hindering everyone trying to discuss this, and parents trying to learn how to keep their kids safe because of this. So it's just everybody's butt hurt. Everybody needs to go buy some Preparation H and some Tux medicated pads. And when you have a hyper emotional day, sit on it. Sit on it and be very open, and understand that being open to other people will make them be open to you. And if you have to shake down some of what they say, then shake it away and don't accept it. AJ says that's not true. 90% of the true crime YouTubers community is great. AJ, I've had contact with the YouTubers. They brought me on a panel because I was very well versed in working with minors that had gone through trauma and addiction issues. And I did a very professional panel, and I was very pleased to do it. I thought I was helping to educate parents that were concerned about the specific issue. And I thought it was great. This little kind, sweet woman with a sweet voice asked me to do this, and I thought, she sounds so sweet. She was so nice. We had two conversations. I thought, sure, I'll do this for your panel. That's great. Did it on the panel, went back. The next day, she blasted this other video of someone saying that they had leaked information from a CPS worker. And I jumped on and I said, whoa, 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 whoa. In the process of investigating something, never take illegal information. So if you say that you got this information or it was gotten by a CPS worker that leaked it, you should be like, no, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. That's illegal. That's going to hurt those children. So you should not do that. If you know somebody that's doing that, please tell them not to do that. That's going to hurt those children. They need to be reported. That's a safety issue. They attacked me because I called them all out that were sharing it. And they were like, listen, you either play the game or you shut up. And I was like, I'm not going to play the game, but I'm not going to shut up. Those are not my options. My options are have my channel, speak my truth, and you can just go on with your bad self. And so they started trying to speak poorly of me. They started taking my videos and cutting them and reposting them, trying to make people hate me. And so people started feeding back and telling me that. And I said, that's fine. And, they've got to do what they've got to do. Whatever their motive is, that's their motive. But if people see me on there and they find out who I am, they're going to come back to my page and they're going to listen to me for 10 minutes, and they're going to realize I'm a retired parole officer, I'm a retired counselor, I taught cognitive behavioral therapy, I supervised murders and violent offenders, and I worked with youth in state's custody because of trauma and addiction. So I've got quite a hefty background in this. And if they listen to me for more than 10 minutes, they're going to understand that I do have a foundation of knowledge. So perhaps this was just free advertising for me. I'm going to look at it as a positive instead of a negative. And I have never had a positive relationship with anyone in the true crime community. I really try to avoid it. It seems to be more of a drama panel scenario than actually worrying about the victim. Now, I have not seen every true crime channel on YouTube. That's probably physically impossible. So if you have found a great one that you feel is just prolifically thoughtful and truthful, please share it. I'll go check them out. But my truth is that the ones I have ran into are not positive people. But if you can share somebody with me that will change my truth, I will go watch them and see if it changes my truth. But your truth is not my truth, and my truth is not your truth. And that's where this whole thing turns into a combustion engine, is no one can understand that. And we can't just allow other people to have their thoughts, their ideas, their opinions, and express them. We get so hurt by other people's words when there's so many more important things in the world to worry about. Boggles my mind. So the time that you spend stuck on a word that somebody said to you, trying to discern it, if you put that energy into something positive rather than rolling it over in something that you can't understand and that you will never understand and that you probably wasn't meant to be understood, you will probably make greater changes in your life putting that energy elsewhere than putting it and keeping it there. So take that energy and pop it somewhere else and do something positive with it. Do not ever give yourself, your energy, your tolerance, and your heart to something that is not going to profit you emotionally, mentally. Do something good with it. And like I said again, I wouldn't have said what he said about the little girl. I'm just not that person. But he communicates in a different way. And while I wouldn't have said it, I can't stop him from saying it because it's his belief and opinion, and we're all allowed to have those. I don't necessarily like everybody's beliefs and opinions. I don't always agree with them, but I can't stop them from expressing theirs without allowing someone to stop me from expressing mine, and I don't want that to happen. So we're all allowed to say our beliefs and opinions. And it's only going to hurt you if you allow it to hurt you. If you have enough knowledge and information to say, I believe otherwise, then you go on and believe otherwise, and don't let that bother you at all. And that's how I am. So I'm not going to, it's like I'm a 44-year-old woman. I'm not going to fight with a 3-year-old that tells me there are not ants in an anthill. That's a waste of my time. So I'm going to move on and go, I know there are ants in that anthill. I'm not going to waste my time fighting over something so juvenile, and I'm just going to move on and be positive and do bigger and better things in my life. And I'm going to leave that 3-year-old to kick that anthill and figure it out the most painful way possible. So don't allow people to pull you into these traps. It's an emotional trap. Well, AG, that's what I'm saying. That panel may have been from the horrible 10%. If you can tell me of a channel that you think is absolutely super, super positive, I will go watch them. And maybe it will change my perspective of the true crime community. But right now, the only perspective I have is built upon what I know, and what I know is mostly negative. So that's the only way I can make my opinion. My opinion can't be your opinion. It has to be mine. Now, can you help change my opinion? Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially if you're positive and you say it nicely and you share politely, then I'm absolutely going to want to go and look at it. And so you may change my opinion. But if you get on here and you're being nasty and just want to be contradictory or kind of create a battle, and that doesn't lead to a unification of minds. That doesn't lead to an energy share. That doesn't lead to anything positive. So I will tell you, if you can list a positive page, I will go and watch them, and I will go see if I can figure out and say, hey, there is actually some decent people, because I know I've not watched every true crime channel on YouTube. So I'm open to watch more. I just don't like to get into these emotional divots with these channels. And I don't like the ones that bring up panels and fuss and cuss amongst each other. I just don't see that as a way that I want to spend any evening or any moment of my life. So I tend to avoid them at all costs. If you all remember last Christmas, I lost a friend of 35 years, and I was mourning my friend of 35 years, one of my best friends, and those people were attacking me, trying to use my emotional state to attack me, and they got really upset when they couldn't break me, and it got worse. And I just had to hunker down and let it get worse, because you never do well engaging an enemy, because what they want is your energy. You can't give them energy. That's fuel to the fire. So I just had to hunker down and keep going, and just put a blind spot up and say, you don't exist to me, and I'm just going to do my thing. And finally they decided, well, we can't bend her to our will and use her, as a drama moment. So they finally gave up on me and moved on. But it was a painful experience. And in the process, they went out after anyone that showed support to me. They went after them as well. And so those are just not people I choose to be involved in. I just don't like them. So I try not to be hypocritical. I try to look at things from multiple avenues and multiple perspectives before I really try to create an idea about it. And I don't think that any avenue is going to find peace in this issue, because a life has been lost and the story is untold. So any perspective is going to have a blank spot and going to have someone that's upset. There's not going to be any perspective on this that is going to have any kind of closure. It's just not going to happen. And so that's going to create a lot of open avenues and a lot of emotional outbursts from people. And we have to be aware, and we have to kind of let them have that and fill it out, and don't antagonize them and go after them for having that. Just understand that they're working through it. And it may not be the healthiest way to work through it, but they're working through it, and back off and not press people that are obviously struggling with this. It's just not polite. If you think you know it, you think you have it down, that's great. Share your perspective, but don't jump on somebody else that's going to share their perspective, because we all should be able to do that. I would hope that everyone would be respectful, but then again, I don't get to dictate that. And, there's, and we still have a lot of freedoms in this country. They get smaller every day, but we still have a lot of freedoms in this country. So, I can't stop someone from doing what they're allowed to do. No, I did vet the channel. I spoke with her for about two times over about a 2.5 week, because it was a very specific discussion about epigenetics and sexual abuse and trauma on the brain, and how that causes regression or locks children from growth. And so I had to do a lot of studying. And so I went back and I watched a lot of her lives. She was a relatively new channel, but she had a very consistent, calm, demeanor, and her chat base and chat forum were great. Her comment section was great. There were some good people in there doing good work with each other that had been through abuse. And I thought it was going to be a great channel. The thing that happened was she boomed really big right about the time she had me on, got to be able to monetize, and then money changed the mission. And so then she got into the drama, because it brought in the views and I became the wheelhouse for the drama at that point. And I was not going to be manipulated in that way, so I just backed away. The last thing she said to me was that she was more important because people were paying for her opinion. And she's like, I didn't even go to school and people are paying for my opinion. And I was like, well, I'm not going to be monetized. For me, it doesn't feel right to say you have to pay to get, my opinion. It doesn't feel right. But I said, just because people pay money for things doesn't mean that they're more precious. And she's like, yes, it does. And I said, listen, honey, I pay for toilet paper. Do you know what I do with toilet paper? So money does not always equal better. But I'm not going to tell you the channel, because that would be not nice of me. But after a few months of being in the drama club, and people understanding that she was going to keep this very tense, anxious community, where she even cussed out her subs on lives. Once they realized that was going to be the standard, she lost a lot of subs. And it's kind of died down. It's not moving for her. And I thought, well, that's her reward for not understanding, if you grab onto the bad, it doesn't, just because the bad's going to pay well for a little while, it doesn't mean it's going to be worthwhile. So she learned, I think, a very painful lesson. But people have to learn their lessons. And sadly, she learned a hard one. So, I just try to be consistent and funny. If I'm in a funny mood, I try to be honest and tell you my perspective from my background. That's all I can tell you. And a lot of people feel free to come here and share their perspectives from their backgrounds. And sometimes we meld and sometimes we don't, but it's okay because we're all trying, to understand each other. And that's the key thing here is we're all trying to understand each other. And I guarantee you in a couple of days when Ryan gets unfrustrated from whatever this culmination was that happened, he will probably feel very bad about the way he vocalized his opinion. And he will probably say something to slightly apologize. I think it will probably eat him alive that, he ended up being so harsh and caustic. But again, I don't have the right to tell him what he has to do and how he has to respond and what he believes and how he states what he believes. So I just kind of have to go with it. Now, Duty Run is more of a retired cop channel, isn't he? Because Police on the Cuff are like retired investigators. They're not really true crime. They're more of like retired investigators that look at stuff now. I wouldn't say they're really true crime. They have too much education to be true crime. Well, I think a lot of the panels aren't valid true crime channels. I think they put that out there and they suck people in. And they just look at these things because they know they get people that are highly emotional and they can cause conflict. So, but the sad thing is in YouTube world, they get lumped into the true crime community, and you have to sift through hundreds of thousands of channels where they're all like being pure dicks to each other. And that's a lot of work to put on somebody that just wants to understand the story, the facts, the details. It's very hard to just simply find that. And so when I find a story that I don't think is just being talked about, I just try to talk about it in a casual manner. I do watch some of like the retired investigators, and they kind of give their investigative overview. I don't look at them more as true crime because they're not necessarily following it and trying to dig stuff up. They're just giving you their perspective as a retired investigator. So I just kind of go, they kind of tell you how investigations go and what people are looking for and what people can anticipate is going on right now. They're not really following and trying to solve, resolve, or seek any new information out. Because they're probably a lot like me as a retired law enforcement. They know not to cross over many boundaries and not to go into, figment of your imagination land and make any statements. So they just kind of look at what's going on. But yeah, I've seen a lot of negativity in the realm that YouTube clumps in that category. So for me, it's not been a pleasant experience at all. And even if I halfway like what the presenter is saying, if you go in the comment section, it's a free for all. It's horrible. It's horrible, horrible, horrible. And the comment section is really, if you want to see the current temperature of society, go into a comment section of a very toxic story or a very blown up story, and you're going to see the worst of the worst. Now, I've only watched Plunder a couple of times, but Plunder seems to be very calm and down low. I kind of like her. I've never watched Zav, or how you say her name, but I have watched Plunder just a couple of times. Now, that's not long enough for me to build a foundation on, but I'm going to keep watching her and see how it goes. So she's one that I may pick up and start watching and might actually have maybe a positive experience with. I did like the way that she speaks. She speaks calm, and she doesn't allow herself to get super emotional. So she's one that is on my maybe list right now, and I will absolutely keep looking at her. Well, AG, I'm glad that you found true crime channels like that, and hopefully I will in the future as well. At this time, I have not, but I'm still going to look, and I'm still going to try. And if things change for me and my perspective changes, then I'll absolutely tell people if I find somebody that I can, put my emphasis behind and push and say, you need to go check this out. I would definitely, be a positive impact for that channel if I find one that I can promote. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, but Molly go lightly. No, Molly doesn't go lightly anywhere. Molly goes head first into crap. And I just can't. Just can't. I really would like to have something positive to say, but I can't think of anything to say about Molly. No, I'm just, no. I like to come on here and be stupid and make stupid videos sometimes and make people laugh. But, I have a stopping point. I have a stopping point. And a lot of people got really disenchanted with the true crime community over the Summer Wells issue. Justice for all. Okay. I don't have a pen. I will check out Justice for All. A lot of people got really tore up over the true crime community with the handling of it in the Summer Wells investigation. And sadly, it got so out of hand because that was a very young child. So people were very much attracted to that story and very hyper emotional and got very territorial and turned toxic to anybody that, had any different perspective or even thought of a scenario that was somewhat negative. People got so tore up. And that story literally, I think, broke a lot of true crime channels because of just where it went. It went off in crazy land. So it was strange. It was weird. And I did not enjoy any of that. See, these are a lot of channels that I don't know about. And you can't expect everyone to know every channel that exists. But I hope I do find a positive one because it's very frustrating for me to go and see people always over amplify drama instead of facts and thoughts and investigative work. It really ticks me off because I know then they're just trying to control their audience, and that doesn't sit well with me. So maybe I'll find one that I can, kind of say, hey, this is a positive place. I have not had, personally, I've not had any positive contact with the True Crime Channel yet. May change. If it changes, I will let you know. Gabby's case was very difficult. It was very difficult for a lot of people as well. And I think one thing that really tripped the trigger on Gabby's case was her being in the Sandy Creek memorial video really wigged some people out somehow. And that had its own effect on half of the people that were looking into it. I've watched the Michael Vaughn. He is not too far from friends that I have out in that area. And it's just like he just evaporated. It's just, bloop, he was gone. And there's nothing. So, hi, Heather. There's nothing. And people are just like, what? And it's so weird. And so, mostly for like missing persons and stuff like that, I watched the David Pilates channel, the Can-Am Missing Persons, because his brain works like mine. He's retired law enforcement. And he puts it down the way I think. So I watch his channel, and I really enjoy his channel. But he's not true crime. He's just a factual channel. He doesn't like try to solve it. He just gives you the facts, and you get to go and try to find a resolution. So he's not really true crime. He just reports on the missing people. But I really like the way that he formats his reports and the way that he behaves during his videos. He's very calm and collected and just doesn't over embellish. He just gives you the information. I live in a very rural area, so people take missing all the time. And just 2 summers ago, they found someone that had been missing for 7 years. And once they found his skull. They didn't find the rest of him. And he took missing on a ginseng trip. I ginseng down there many, many, many times. And so for him to go down there and disappear was just like, wow, really, but he was gone, no sign of him for 6 years. And on the 7th year, at the end of summer, when bow season was starting to open up, some hunters came across what they saw was bone. And the funny thing was that his skull was actually set up kind of in a place of reverence. It was kind of like it was placed somewhere. It didn't naturally fall, and there was nothing else there. So it had been like placed there by some animal or something. And they had to call the rescue squad, coroner, and all those people, and they had to track like 7.5 miles down into a river gorge to get it. And it took them about a year to do the DNA, and yes, it was him. Nothing else of him has been found. There's been several missing people over to my east in the Morgan County area, and they finally found one of those. He had been missing for probably 2 or 3 years, and there's still several missing. And we have extremely rough terrain here, and we're on an area where the mountain falls off on either side. So we have a lot of cave networks, we have a lot of sinkholes, we have a lot of cave openings that you can't tell are there until you walk right in them. So we have a very dangerous place around here. And so people go missing quite a bit around here. And one guy was missing for 11 years, and they finally found him. And the thing is the way they found him, they don't know if he fell and rocks landed on top of him, but it's suspicious because the way the rocks were landed, it's almost as if they covered him as a grave. And people had ginseng hunted and been all around him for 11 years and never found him. And then one day someone happened to sit down to take a drink, looked down, saw a bone, moved a rock, and saw clothing and found him. And he had been missing for 11 years. We didn't know what happened to him. There were even people talking about alien abductions. So we have one of those places where people go missing a lot because we're extremely rural. And normally, even as weird as the people that go missing are, there's normally a very normal reason that they go missing. They either fall, have an accident, get into a cave network and can't find their way out, run across one of our predator animals here in the area. Something happens. Most people here are pretty good woodsmen, and so there was one guy that got lost ginsenging, and he had just enough cell phone ping to call and say, I'm lost. But he was new to the area, and he was in a teardrop formation of land that had 2 roads that ran on either side of the mountain, and then down at the bottom was a river. And if he had walked 1.5 miles in either direction, he would have hit a road, or a river, or a road. He could not understand the pattern of the lay of the land, the sunlight, and how he was walking, and he kept walking in circles and not understanding he wasn't walking a straight line. And so he walked in circles and never understood that he was walking in circles, and it took him 3 days to find him. And I had ginseng there since I was 23, and I'd probably ginseng there about 7 years. And so we went to ginseng one morning, and they had it locked, and patrol car sitting there, and I was like, what's up? And they're like, we've got a missing person. And they're like, we can't let anybody in, even if you've got written permission from the landowner, because we have an investigation going on. And I was like, oh, crap. And I was like, how did he get lost here? Because literally it's a road, river. And they're like, we don't know, but we're trying to find him. But that's what he done. He just did not know how to self-navigate and had just walked in circles for 2 days and wore himself out. So a lot of people like to tell these great stories and stuff, but a lot of it's just normal reasonings, for that reason people get lost. So majority men, actually the majority are men, but it's because I don't think a lot of women go out and do these things solo or with friends. So like I might have seen one other woman ginseng, to the level that I ginseng. Like I would go out and ginseng and be like in the deep woods, like jumping hogs, and of course, I trail rode. I cut trails for a trail riding facility when I was 13, 14, 15. So I saddle up on my horse with tools at dawn and not come back till dusk. And I'd be 7, 8 miles from the barn, and I would be actually riding a bluff along a river gorge. And so, I've spent more time in the woods than most people. And I'm lucky I have a good mental map. I have a good, I have good navigation in my brain. Some people just don't. So, and I was in 2nd and 3rd grade, I would go coon hunting with my dad and brother and his friends and chase hounds all over the hills and hollers. And so I just got raised, I guess, I was more acclimated toward being out and being in the wilderness and understanding how to find your way back out and using the stars and using, understanding the movement of the sun and the moon. It's just a lot of people don't always pay attention. Well, yeah, and you get out there and you get busy, and if you don't stay aware, you'll get onto a line of ginseng and start digging, and you'll dig that ginseng line, and you'll get turned around. And if you haven't paid attention, and before you pick up and step to the next plant, taking another, here I am, you will just follow and get turned around quicker than you can realize. And but you should always go in groups. It's just safer to go in groups. At least go in pairs. I would always go with my husband, or we would go with also go with his brother and my brother. So you should just always be super careful. And these things happen. So, but there's a lot to this case that I still think that the psychology of the teenagers in this Rodney case is jacked the crap up. I think their behavior is atrociously weird. I hope one day to figure out why. Will I? I don't know. I hope I do. But I just have to sit on it and say that's what I'm taking from this, and maybe I will figure it out, maybe I won't, but I have to be okay with it for right now because it's all I've got. So I really think that something strange happened that shouldn't have happened. And I hope that the story comes out so there can be closure, real closure for the family and this community. And it can make younger kids be more aware of when they go and they participate in these sketchy things. You've got to be super careful, and you've got to be aware of your surroundings. You've got to always make sure that you're competent and clear-minded, and you cannot trust anyone, even if you think you're surrounded by friends. Always be leery. Always, be questionable of everyone's behavior around you, especially if there's an event with lots and lots of people. Always keep your guard up. And yes, always have an out plan. Even if I go to a concert with a friend or I take my daughter somewhere, we look at the layout of the building. We know where all the exits are. We have a plan of attack. We sit in when they have the wider aisle seats, we sit in a wider aisle seat so we can get out quicker, and we sit by the one next to the exit. That's where I always buy tickets. And I've taught my children the same thing. And that's what my daughter has done. She spent 4 years at UT in Knoxville, and she was like, I did the same thing. And she's like, my teachers always wondered, because I was a straight A student, why I didn't sit down at the front row. And she said, because if something happens, I want to be the first one out that exit door. She's like, I have a plan. In 3 doors, I can be outside. And, they were like, well, you don't think like most people. And she's like, well, my mom supervised murderers. And they were like, oh. So I never really went to a party either. I was always studying or working. I worked at horse barns to pay my way through college. Yeah, situational awareness is a lost art. Let me tell you. And glancing and profiling a group of people is also a lost art. That's good that you taught your daughters. That's great, Diana. It's gonna come in very useful for them. Well, it's not even you have trust issues. You shouldn't trust everybody just because you're in the same place enjoying the same thing. You should have questions about everyone you meet that you don't have a foundation of knowledge on. That's not being mean. It's just being honest. So be honest with yourself. But that's all I wanted to say. I think I'm done, or I'm going to start repeating. But what he said may have come out as harsh and may not have been what you wanted to say or wanted to hear. But he is what he needed to vocalize and what he needed to express at that moment. And even if you don't agree with it or not, it's still his perspective to vocalize. And you have to respect that, because we all have that right. It doesn't mean that what you feel is invalid. It just means that it's a moot point, because everybody has the right to voice their opinion, and it's going to hit you how it hits you, but they have the right to voice that opinion. So everybody needs to work through their emotions and come to grips with all of this, and understand that we're all viewing this in 100 billion million different ways, and nobody's going to have the same emotions, and we have to respect everybody's. And even if we can't respect specifically what they say, we have to respect their ability to say it. So I appreciate everybody spent time with me, because time is something you cannot get back. And if AG is still around, I will definitely check out those channels. And hopefully one day I will have a positive true crime channel to send y'all to. Right now I don't, but maybe we'll grow a little bit in the future. And if I do, I will certainly let you know. But thank you so much. And that's my perspective. And if you want to share yours, I say everybody get a channel, share your perspective. Let's start talking. Let's build our society again, and let's start communicating, because we all can. It's okay to communicate. Bye, guys. Bye, Cindy.